We are getting terrifying new video out of Aurora, Colorado. This shocking doorbell footage you're seeing now shows a group of armed men forcing their way into an apartment complex. Residents are claiming that gang members have taken over the building, pushing them to leave their homes out of fear for their safety. One Aurora City Council member says this video is evidence of a Venezuelan gang operating within the community. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, and joining me today, Fox News correspondent Molly Lyon, Fox News contributor and president of American Spirit Enterprises, Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor and former State Department spokesperson under President Obama, Marie Harf, and former New York Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin. Now first, let's go to Alicia Acuna, who is live in Denver with the latest. Alicia.
Hi, Emily. Well, Aurora police are not confirming this incident is connected to Tren de Aragua, but police do tell me they are in possession of this video and they have seized evidence. First, this doorbell video shared with Fox showing a group of men walking up a stairwell at an apartment building in Aurora, Colorado. One has a long gun, 3 others with handguns. And then there's this. 2 men forcing their way into that same apartment. Edward and Cindy Romero moved out of the building yesterday. They say because it felt too dangerous to stay after this incident and a shootout earlier this month that left their car with bullet holes. The Romeros say things changed in the building when migrants started moving in. Aurora City Council member Danielle Jurinsky says this building and others have been taken over by the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. Last month, the U.S. Treasury Department designated TDA a transnational criminal organization, and folks who live in a handful of apartment buildings say they are scared and believe it's a problem. Aurora police with a statement saying, "We are aware that components of TDA are operating in Aurora. APD has been increasingly collecting evidence to show the gang is connected to crimes in the area. However, it would be improper at this time for the city and APD to make conclusory statements about specific incidents or provide details about law enforcement strategy and operations." A couple of things, Emily. Yesterday, Denver police released a statement acknowledging TDA's presence in neighboring Aurora. Aurora PD says they believe reports of the gang's influence are isolated, but really the bottom line right now, we can't get confirmation if anyone has been arrested or where these men are. Emily.
Alicia, absolutely frightening. Thank you so much. Lee Zeldin, I can't imagine the terror those residents feel, because whether or not we know what gang or if there's a gang affiliation occurring, at the end of the day, what we saw is long guns, frightening weapons, and really scary people in that apartment.
This isn't a staircase in Central America. When you see this footage coming from within the United States, we know it doesn't have to be this way. And we see budgets that are getting cut for law enforcement. We understand the impacts of what that means when resources are prioritized to people who are illegally in the country, like what we're witnessing right now in Denver, where the budget cut for law enforcement is going down. Again, it doesn't have to be this way. We have to secure our border. We need prosecutors who prosecute. We need laws passed that protect law-abiding Americans instead of criminals. And we need to be backing our men and women in blue. I saw footage last hour from one of these houses, from one of these apartments, where it's not just a lock, it's 3 locks, and on top of the 3 locks, there was another broom or something, or a pole that's providing a 4th lock. Can you imagine how much fear you have to live in to say that my top lock, the chain, and my door lock isn't enough? This is no way to live.
You know, Molly, it sort of reminds me, there's a lot of caricatures of this, you know, the OK Corral, people fleeing and leaving it to the guys warring in the street. And a lot of thought that has relegated that level of extreme violence to certain communities. But the whole point is we don't accept that. No American should accept that level of violence, that level of stronghold that these people have good law-abiding residents under. And yet this is the reality in Aurora, Colorado in 2024. How did you get here?
Exactly. And these people living in this apartment complex, this isn't the wealthy of suburban Denver. You know, this is a struggling apartment complex. And to them, it must feel like gaslighting. They're saying, we've been telling you there's this problem. City officials saying, well, we know this apartment complex has some issues with its leadership and how it's been run. And then you have these city councilors that are coming forward and saying, we believe this is gang activity. And yet some of the reporting out of Colorado, here's a headline, Aurora lawmakers insist without evidence Venezuelan gang responsible for apartment closure. That's from Colorado Public Radio. So there's like this atmosphere that, you know, it's not proven, you're imagining it, but to the people living in this apartment complex, it is fair to ask, is this connected to a transnational gang? Who are these people? Why aren't they in jail? Why do I have to live in fear? When will I have to move out? Because they have to, allegedly, because we can't get confirmation from law enforcement, because there's this constant talk about an investigation that's underway, and what they need are the results. They need to see this stop, because this is terrifying.
That's right. And, you know, Marie, when we talk about labeling the transnational organization, the designation that the government has done, you know, what that means is, what that translates to are resources and charges, right? So with that label means that certain resources can be allocated toward it and certain charges can be upcharged. But regardless of that, this is so patently unacceptable. Do you see the vice president, candidate for president, who has talked recently about transnational gangs, do you think she will address how unacceptable this is?
I do, and I think, you know, to Lee's point, she and President Biden supported a bill that Republicans killed in Congress just earlier this year that would have provided a lot more resources to Denver and to other cities like Denver to help them with this crisis. A lot of the reason that many of these migrants are actually in Denver is because Governor Greg Abbott, these are a lot of the migrants he bussed up from Texas in a political stunt that sent migrants all over the country where places were less able to deal with them. So let's also keep in mind why there are many of these migrants in Denver. But look, this is obviously horrifying. Like, we look at this and it is a very difficult thing to watch. I think that Kamala Harris is going to continue saying we supported the toughest immigration bill that any Democrat in decades has supported that would have sent money to do exactly this, to help these cities, to send more resources to the border. And now, under the Biden-Harris policy, border crossings are at their lowest level since Donald Trump was president. So we can argue about what happened in the first 2 years, but where we are today, there are fewer people coming across the border and more people actually getting apprehended, sent back, than there were since Donald Trump was president.
And Tammy, the counter to that, many people argue, well, the lower numbers are because the government is sort of reallocating where those numbers are from. And the issue isn't necessarily how the illegal immigrants got there. It's that they got there in the first place from the porous border, that other than signing legislation, really what we needed was just enforcement of laws a long time ago. And we needed Trump's policies to remain. That didn't happen. Where do we go from here?
Yes, and consider also the community that's targeted. Is that traditionally you've got, you know, immigrants all going to generally the same area, and then you've got these gangs targeting people, or alleged gangs, or groups of people who are criminal, have criminal intentions with their long guns and their handguns, which one has to wonder, where did they get them? Is that they're targeting immigrants who have been fleeing the very same activity at home. And they come to this country to only face it here again because of the release of certain bad actors from certain South American countries to come here with them. So they've exported the problem that those other people looking for refuge have been fleeing, and we've allowed that to occur with not cooperating with ICE, with having the open border, not having enough staff to deal with who's coming in and who isn't. And so for those who would claim that, you know, this is a humanitarian thing to do, to let people in, we're having them upend their lives to come to this country to face exactly the same people that were terrorizing them at home. That is, of course, the opposite of what we should be doing. And that's why a closed border is the humanitarian thing to do, as is legal immigration.
Yeah, and that's right. A terrible pattern they are in, and a terrible pattern we are now in. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.